Welcome back to Mind Your Business UK, MYB. Welcome, Dane. What's going on?
Index, I'm good, back in there, minding my own and that. Just been working, doing a few shows here and there. Been out of town, got some other shows coming up that's out of town as well. Yeah, just been all over, man. Just hustling, working, doing some writing and stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just staying busy, and then family first, innit? So just been on that.
I hear that still. So, there's a lot to discuss, bro. Since the last time we were on the pod, I don't even know where to start.
It's every day, bro. The world is crazy. I know we don't really use newspapers nowadays, but boy, these days you'd be highlighting, circling, crossing things that's happening in the paper. We're living in crazy times now. Crazy times. Try imagine a brother coming out of a coma now that's our age.
Imagine, bro.
And let's say he went into a coma, I don't know, start of 2000 or maybe even 10 years.
Bro, even 2020.
Yeah.
The start, start of 2020, man was going to work every day.
Yeah. Trust me. The last 5 years alone, if someone came out of a coma, they'd be like,
what, unrecognizable?
Yeah.
You get, I'm showing that there's bare things going on. I don't even know where to start, so I'm just gonna go through some things that we have to discuss today. One of the things that you were talking about, well, you you sent it to me. Kanye West with his madman message, bro. Yeah.
I mean,
let me go through.
You saw my face in it. I was like, I don't even know where to start.
I mean, I've got a theory on it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk quite openly on that.
I'm happy to hear it. I'm happy to hear it.
But, and I hope. Yeah, I'm sure it's friendly enough for the podcast. Anyway, you've got Kanye West. You've got everything that's going on geopolitically with the Sahara region, Burkina Faso, Niger, Mali, and other countries within Africa, Ghana,
Namibia. I think the new president of Namibia has been saying certain things as well.
Namibia.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on.
Yeah, South Africa as well.
South Africa. I've got a massive theory on how this all connects. And also something else you sent me, which was the discourse going on in the digital space around Caribbean men underperforming so far as their Caribbean female counterparts are concerned, earning significantly less in a lot of cases than their counterparts. So imagine being in a relationship as a man and your woman's earning 10 bags more than you. You're living in a household. How does that look? How does that play out? And I feel like, I mean, we could start there.
Yeah.
To be fair, because I feel like there's a lot going on in regards to how we've ended up here. I feel almost as like we've ended up here through a lot of marginal losses. This is not just one thing. I think what I've seen is a lot of people try to simplify it and say, oh, Caribbean men are this way because they're highly sexualized, or Caribbean men are this way because blah, 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 this, that. No,
don't care about the books or only want to be a bad man on road and get girl and...
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I'm not discounting those things because I'm a Caribbean man, so I know the implications of being in a certain space and being influenced by certain, like by my uncles or the men around me, and my family being it's heavily matriarchal.
Yeah.
Because the women have been forced to be the way that they are. You know what I mean? And when I look back now, I zoom out and I look at the reasons why the women have then become so strong and so resolute in their positions and, you know, kind of leading the family. It's because the men weren't leading the family and they were more concerned with, when you zoom out and look at it fact for fact.
Yeah. But I think there's something to be said about that. I think that what the Western understanding of matriarchy is that this idea that, take an example of Caribbean men, for example, that when we say we're in a matriarchal society, that we're lacking in masculine power and then we just concede power to the matriarchs in our family, which I don't think is necessarily the way it works. It's more of a question of, in the same way that I would say the Italian diaspora, when you look at like the mafia or Italian immigrants in America, they're largely matriarchal as well. And I think it's more down to the fact that, women can have the biggest influence on how a man develops. So even according to scientific study, your level of intelligence will be determined by the intelligence that your mother has, which is the reason why it's called your mother tongue. In terms of your speech patterns and the language you talk, it will be called your mother tongue. You'll also learn your primary education from your mother as well. So things that you don't necessarily think about, your cleaning habits, your grooming habits, even your sleeping habits, and just how you conduct yourself in an environment. These are things that can definitely have cues that come from your mother. And this is not to, like, stigmatize or apportion responsibility. I completely agree with you that, like, particularly Afro Caribbean women have been forced to sometimes straddle masculine and feminine gender roles within the family due to absentee fatherism, or absenteeism. But even then, when I was growing up, because I'm second generation, so my parents would be considered like Windrush. Even though we knew people who may not have fathers, so to speak, for a number of different reasons, not just down to abandonment. It could be for mortal reasons. There's also the systematic reasons. And a lot of those are linked economically. So even when we talk about, like, being in the home and stuff, I think we've discussed this before in the pod, where it's like, for a lot of my friends I went to school with, if their parents as Caribbeans were married, they would have to pay a considerably higher fee if they went to school, or they wouldn't receive like EMA or certain grants that allowed them to travel to school or to eat when they were at school, because even though both their parents work, they may not be able to make ends meet in the same way. So a lot of Black Caribbean families were incentivized not to marry for economic incentives. But what I was going to say is that, like, even though we grew up with people who didn't necessarily have, two parents present that we were aware of, there would be a family support system or a communal support system where you'd still be able to have masculine figures of guidance that would be able to help you, whether it would be an uncle or a family friend, or it could be a football coach or head of a youth club, or like leader of a music group. But even to an extent, even if you were man on road, there was still a certain level of honor whereby you still knew that your presence on the road was more a function of, because of the systematic impediments that we have to deal with, this is how we have to make money.
Right.
And this doesn't mean that we encourage criminality, but it's like, this is the only way we're able to feed ourselves to any agreeable level due to the deprivation we've been forced into.
Yeah.
And I can teach a kid on how to take care of themselves. I'm not trying to glorify anything.
Yeah.
Because my experience a lot of the time with man that was on road was, you're definitely not like this, so you're not even allowed to be here.
But this is the thing, and you see, like, you've mentioned so many different things, and this is why I think it's a more of a marginal last situation.
Yeah.
Marginally, we have so many little things that are attacking our community, especially Afro Caribbean men, and I think in some ways is now starting to attack our direct African members of our community.
Yeah.
In the UK, in particular, what I see, because they are, and the word that you mentioned earlier on the way in, it's more of assimilation.
Assimilation, not integration.
Not integration is
assimilation. Exactly that.
I think a lot of African brothers are starting to take on the ways of Afro Caribbean brothers.
Absolutely.
You get what I'm showing you, which is degrading. All of these things contribute to degrading the family dynamic. You get what I'm showing you, and I think we talk about masculinity and feminism, or femininity, and I feel like they both are very important in their place, because women want men to be men. You get me? For the most part, they want, even like, I've got a cousin, right? She's gay. She's the masculine version of masculine member of her relationship. But even she acknowledges, like, she says to me, I have to listen to you because you bring that energy. You get what I'm showing you? Not like on a bully boy thing, but it's like, you assert yourself as a man. You get me? And I feel like that is what women generally want. But the one thing, especially Black women, and I don't know whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, because they get stigmatized with this strong Black woman trope so much that, they're not afforded a certain type of care in hospitals and other things that,
just
impact them.
Like you said, just nurturing that you're able to embrace your femininity just when you're venting about your life at work, or just having an emotional outburst, and being able to have that with a masculine foundation or just a masculine setting that you can be, coddled or cared for, or do you know what I mean? As I was saying, I feel like, in the same way that men want to assert their masculinity and be able to feel like a man in a family structure or paradigm of a relationship, you know, women want to be able to have the same thing as well. But
Mm,
I think that for a lot of black women, they've not been able to see themselves reflected in those spaces in main media at large. Like, you
mm,
know, black women are not really given the same feminine archetypes when they look at like a rom-com and them kind of things there.
mm,
Like when they look at like normal media and like any kind of like story or literature, normally they don't get to be set in the defined feminine,
mm,
despite the fact that so many people mimic them when demonstrating femininity.
mm.
And you know, it's a big cross to bear. But I just think that
There's also the fact that what black women are very good at is, and doing it very like hard, is that when the man doesn't show up, they double down.
yeah,
You get me? And I feel like that is to their detriment a lot of the time. That it feels good, and I think as like as a child of that type of a dynamic,
mhm,
um, it works. It worked for me to a certain degree. There was benefits and there was like gifts and curses that came with it. The gifts is that you did get an element of masculinity within your upbringing,
yeah,
but the curse or curses within that, and I probably shouldn't say curses, but the negative side of those sort of things is that you don't necessarily um how to put it, like my mum couldn't be man and woman. She couldn't give me what a real man.
yeah, yeah.
You get what I'm showing you? So in that regard, someone's gonna say pause when I say that, but you know
Mm.
what? Fuck you, like, yeah, because I hate that whole new pause. Why everything's a why? Not everything's a why. Anyway, what real men are supposed to provide in the household or in a family structure or dynamic, I feel like not all women are able to. Women ain't able to do that. You get what I'm showing you,
Yeah,
and it's like forcing women to do that. It's only, especially, and I can only speak for where I was coming from. The negative effect it had on me is that I had to go outside of my family
yeah,
to learn how to be a man.
yeah.
That slowed down my progression, that slowed down my maturity, that slowed down my growth. And it's only later on in life when I started to realize, oh shit, like
Mhm.
these things matter. These are the things that matter in life, because the men that were around me were all concerned about getting gal and
Yeah,
getting money. You get me? So then that's what my concern was.
yeah.
You get me? Getting gal and getting money. That was what I was on as a young man. You get me?
Mhm.
Growing up. And that comes with its own problems when you're
Yeah.
talking about, like, man.
Well, a repeating cycle because
Yeah.
no one's teaching you the consequences of being able to like if you fuck a bag of girl, the stats are gonna be you're gonna have a ute with somebody you don't want to have a ute with. Now
Yeah.
you're in a situation you don't want to be in, and the cycle repeats. But
Yeah.
you know, it's particularly more grave a situation within our community because there aren't systems in place that will protect us from that. And, you know,
Mm,
we don't have the resources where like there's other people where they can have an illegitimate child and be like, well, here's the money. I still don't want to be involved. We
mm,
don't have that kind of luxury. But what also happens, like you said, is that you get when people's minds are distorted for long enough, you get normalization.
yeah.
So people start thinking this is acceptable behavior
Yeah.
and you also get resentment. Whether or not we have the conversation explicitly as a community,
Mm,
there is going to be some resentment that women are deprived of the opportunity and spaces to be feminine.
mm,
They're going to blame us for that. They're going to be resentful of that, and it also means that they can become very rutted in that behavior. Where it's
yeah.
like I'm so used to having to be the man and the woman in my household, then women don't even know how to react to men in their
Yeah.
household at a
Yeah.
certain point
Yeah. It's
because you get
mad.
so used to that pathology of behavior and it's not, you know, it's not something to cuss people about because
It's a conversation we need to have,
yeah,
because there's been a few times now, and I've only realized it later on in life, the first few times it happened, but I've realized when now you can see the traits of a woman who's either coming from a family where it's the women that have to do everything,
hmm
or I should say, they are coming from relationships in which they had to just do everything. They were the breadwinner, they were the man and woman in that dynamic. And when you get with a woman like that, as a man, it can be hard to deal with. Yeah,
it
I
can be
mean,
hard
like,
to deal
because
with. Yeah,
you're walking into a dynamic where you're like, okay, cool. As a man, I know I do X, Y, Z, and you're not able to do it. You're not being afforded the space to do your thing as a
yeah,
man, and a woman just being in her feminine space. You get me? And then when she's rebelling against you, that can create arguments. So you're looking at this girl and she's banging. 10 on looks, she's educated, you get me, she's doing her thing, blah, blah, blah. But when you step into that space, it's almost like, yo, I can't be a man. But then you've got this also perpetuated by men, and in some cases women. It's a complicated dynamic because I've heard of scenarios in which a woman and man are together, and a man saying to a woman, I've moved into your yard, but why now do I need to pay rent? Because you was paying rent before I got here, so why am I? First and foremost, how have you come with that like
To anybody, even if you're living in somebody platonically, no, but
like, what man thinks because he's laying pipe,
yeah,
he can come and say them kind of things. But my thing is this: how is it like we have to question where and how you have come to this ideology?
yeah, have you developed this kind of entitlement? I completely agree on this one. Trust me.
But for the woman, how are you accepting? Why are you accepting this as a thing?
Yeah, it's like you said, because and that's the answer is that a woman who has not had the opportunity to develop the emotional intelligence to deal with someone who might be taking advantage of her, or hasn't had the frame of reference to know to deal with a masculine presence in the home, irrespective of if that masculine presence is a positive or negative one. You know, people are taps and drains, as they say.
Yeah.
And you know, if especially if
explain that though.
So yeah, when I say people are taps and drains, is that there are some people who can be a source of nourishment for you in whatever capacity, whether it's they help you professionally or they help you emotionally, or you know they help you because they have, you know, you may have other family responsibilities they can help you with, and whereas some people can be drains where they just basically all they know how to do is take.
They're just taking away.
Yeah. And like you said, and there are, and you know, that's a thing we have to discuss is that there is a certain element within our community where it's like people think that their dick is as good as a platinum credit card. And I'm sorry, like, you know.
Not when there's kids running around and you've got things to do, you get I'm showing you. And the thing, and this is the thing as well, right? I think we need to really, there's things about our community we love.
Yeah.
But one of the things about our community, and it's not everywhere, so I don't want to, I don't want to make it sound like it's every black couple or every black family. But we've spoken about this some length. We really need to find a way to kind of pull together our family structures, because that is the primary space in which we can breed healthy kids, wholesome children that can be solid.
It takes a village to raise a child. That's not like a new thing we've come up with. It takes a village to raise a child has been a common mutual communal understanding we've had in our community for years and years. And you know, as a comedian, there's plenty of comedians that would have the joke where it's like, my parents don't even need to catch me doing a madness, because CCTV used to be like, do you know what I mean? Used to be Caribbean circuit television. Like if there's another Caribbean person saw you doing a madness, if they see you doing a madness, it's just as bad as CCTV. You let your mum find out from somebody else you was misbehaving on the road.
Listen, I remember having beef with one brother back in the ends, right? Me and him used to fight all the time, and like it was well known we had beef. But our grandparents were from the same Caribbean country, and lived like probably like 200 yards away from each other, And I remember seeing his grandmother carrying shopping to her house. She's walking, old lady. She's moved back to the Caribbean now, and I remember helping her with her shopping bags. And a friend of mine wasn't black. He said to me, like, why are you helping this nan? Like, yeah. And I said to, yo, you think I would just see her not help her with her bags?
Is that the question?
Like, her nan knows, she knows my nan.
Yeah.
You get me? We know it's just an unspoken code.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no disrespect will be tolerated.
Simple.
Otherwise, it's licks. You get me?
Yeah.
And he just didn't understand that. You get what I'm
saying?
A
lot of people don't. It's like, you know, especially myself. Like people might know me for being outspoken about certain topics. Now I talk about certain things.
Yeah.
If an old Caribbean person wants to chew me out, I'm holding that cussing.
Yeah.
Like if I do shows and there's Caribbean people in the audience, if I swear, I have to apologize. And that's if I do swear. But there is a way you carry yourself to your elders that was a cornerstone of, you know, cultural trends. And this process of integration that we've undergone while being in the UK as the diaspora is I think it's been one of the larger negative effects it's had on us. Because the other thing as well is that, like, when we talk about like this supposed crisis among Afro Caribbean men, is like our avoidance of education. Which to me is a madness that like Caribbean men are not academic, because There's a kid called Romani Wilfred. He's St. Lucian, and he lives in the UK. I've spoken to him a couple times. He has a higher IQ than Albert Einstein.
Mad.
And he's not. He's one of many, and he probably he's one of many. But it's like, and I've heard Akala references as well, where if you, I think it's like University of the Caribbean has some of the highest graduates per square kilometer in the world, like, and so it's interesting that in every other part of the world, like Caribbean literacy rates are higher than America.
Yeah.
We have higher literacy rates than America.
I will say this. I will say this, right? Because I've said it on this podcast before. The areas in which Black people occupy predominantly within the UK are spaces in which poverty occupies predominantly.
Well, it wasn't chosen for us. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, you get me. Like we
didn't choose it.
We didn't choose this.
No blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
Right. You get. I'm sure.
Yeah. Let's not forget that.
So it's the same with the educational system. It's been proven that there was a concerted effort placed upon the system to degrade the education of young Black boys.
Yeah.
You get what I mean?
To a lesser extent girls, but young Black boys in particular.
And I'm focusing on the boys
absolutely,
because to the degree that people are talking about Afro Caribbean men not performing as well as their Afro Caribbean women counterparts, in my opinion, it's in direct correlation to the degree that our education has been degraded.
Yeah, completely.
You get what I'm showing you? So there should be no surprise.
Yeah.
But again, as I say, there is this marginal loss effect because not only and this again, people can look this up. There's been books written. I've actually got a book and I can't remember the name of it, but there's a book that I read that gives you stats, figures and facts about how the degradation of our education in the British schooling system was actually implemented and rolled out.
Yeah.
You get what I'm showing you? So for me, that is one of the marginal losses right there. Then you've got the family dynamics. However, it comes out of ignorance, out of loss, you still got this thing that's impacting our community. You get what I'm showing you? Then there's other things like and I suppose it's born from not having a strong family dynamic, but something that affected me was I wasn't necessarily concerned about, I wouldn't say education, I wouldn't say that. I was more concerned about, as I said earlier, girl and money. You get what I'm showing you, which is a massive distraction. And one thing about when you're young, you don't realise how quick time will go.
Yeah.
So you'll get to a
But I mean, you know what? Sorry to cut you there, because I think that the whole thing about pursuing girls and that carnality thing, that I think for me that's a part and parcel of the patriarchal indoctrination that all men are brought up with in this part of the world. That when you don't have opportunities to have power in other spaces, men will tend to get involved in, I guess, what I call the traffic of women or the bartering of women or getting gal, basically, is a big part of like what makes you a man. What happens is when you reach a certain age, for a lot of Black men, particularly Afro Caribbean men, where you're able to graduate into masculine spaces and wield masculine power, like in politics, like in the boardroom. Do you know what I mean? Like in the executive room of the football team, not just the football on the pitch, but in the man, you know what I mean? The managerial in the dugout. These spaces of masculine, of historic, like, you know, STEM, like in the laboratory, these historical spaces of masculine power have been, we've been deprived of that as Caribbean men because of the concerted effort to deprive us of power and of opportunity in, you know, the spaces where you make your bones in doing this. If you are getting expelled from school before you get to like college level, you don't even get to the part where they ask you what you want to be when you grow up.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that white establishment is scared of Afro Caribbean men?
I think they're more scared of us than any other group of people. And I would say that our equivalent to an extent would be like African Americans. And nothing scares racists, as whether they be prejudiced or racist that create systems, more than an intelligent Black man.
The reason why I asked that question is because if you look, there's such a contradiction in the way that society runs.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, we've got all these these projects and all these projects that exist for the benefit of the working class or the deprived. You get what I mean? People, there's grants and things available for people that are disengaged from society and they're not contributing much to society. And in my mind, when I look at the people at the top of the tree and what they're doing and how they're being able to establish themselves, all of them have got strong family units. So if you look at especially white elites, you get what I mean? The family is...
That's what the power is.
They place so much importance on the family.
That's why it's called generational wealth. They understand the true power is in retaining that within family structure.
So the reason why I say that, and just to piggyback onto what you're saying, the reason why I say that is because nowhere in the education system, to my knowledge at least, I was never taught this, was there an emphasis on strong family dynamics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was never... So I say that to say for the audience that this is something that they don't want us to do.
Can I jump on that as well? Yeah, because I want to give an example of that. My example of that, even if we move away from the academic side of it, is the whole Tim Westwood thing. And I explain. Aside from all the other allegations, all that stuff, we'll come back to that another time, innit? But I'm saying this, when I was a teenager, Tim Westwood was a 40-plus-year-old man.
Right.
Now, as far as people have discussions about the aesthetic of hip-hop and rap music, 40 is way too old to be in the game. That's what you'd be told as a black rapper or a black label owner, a black producer. Who wants to hear beats from a black man, a black producer in their 40s? That would be the narrative. Uncle, sit down, bro. We're not trying to hear that. We're not trying to hear that, uncle. Chill out. Like, raise some kids and that. You know what I mean? At your big age. Like, we've heard all the things, innit? Now, I say that because it means then this white man who has no real connection to the culture, who's the son of a preacher, becomes the gatekeeper to young black British creatives getting into the game.
Yeah.
Which means he determines, based on his perception of blackness, what representatives carry our voice to the mainstream at large. Now, that you don't have any family connection to that. You don't have any community connection to that. You're just about securing the bag and, having your own clout. Now, I say that's problematic because when we talk about generational wealth, Tim Westwood was the A&R for Def Jam UK. You obviously have a background in music. Can you think of 2 artists that he was responsible for curating and introducing to the game?
Ooh. And you know what? And I'm going to sit from the position of not wanting to discredit Tim Westwood, even in the context of everything that we know about him today. And it's hard to say, like, what he was very famous in doing is breaking artists in some of the biggest US artists in the UK. And when I say breaking them, I'm talking he was responsible for playing them to a larger audience and opening up the audience to...
But I would say he was awarded the responsibility. I don't think he had any more superior proficiency than any of the other black underground DJs, black music curators, because there's no artist that I would have heard on Radio 1 on Tim Westwood that didn't have a buzz within the black British community already. So I'm saying that because like you said, he's responsible he's been able to build himself this reputation to the point whereby successive generations of black musicians will go to this white man in an almost paternalistic way to bring them into the thing. So my question is, how does this white man from Somerset become a godfather, if you will, within UK black music, so that young black men have more of a reverence to him than they do to people who are of the same community to them, who will try and give them advice or try to bring them in? And I feel like
that's a whole... And
I say that because, and I'm just saying that because we talk about community. We are, even the way our community is frayed in industrial settings has a massive negative effect. And just going to your saying, because of this, and sometimes I think when men are walking away from their families or walking away from their communities, this is what you're leaving the community open to. We are open to exploitation from interests that don't really give a fuck about our children and are telling our children how to behave and what kind of behavior they should perpetuate up until a point whereby they grow out of it and they don't even realize, and now they don't even know what they're supposed to be doing with their lives. whereas his family gets to retain the generational wealth that he has generated.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying is that you cannot find the black equivalent whereby you can't be a black man and be the same age as David Rodigan and be a leading authority on dancehall in the UK. You can't be a black man and be Tim Westwood's age and be a leading authority on hip hop and be breaking acts between the Atlantic. And that has an effect because that is a position whereby that gatekeeping stops there being that prevents lineage. That prevents lineage whereby, you know, a black producer can bring through like a black artist originally because and like I said, and it's because we don't have these powers as adults.
But
and so a large part, so just so it's quite long, but what I'm trying to say is that the problem with this is that through that deprivation of power, that keeps black men as adolescents. Right. That keeps us being teenagers.
Yes.
And when you're a teenager, that's what you care about. Gal and pum pum and chirping and moving to girls and drawing numbers and getting bare things and all the different and we've got so many names for that. But if you were to ask us to name more than one type of investment, we're baffed because we're teenagers. Because a teenager is someone who's got the body of an adult but still has the mind of a child. And so that's why I say the effect is that black men don't get to move out of that because we're still in this position whereby we're still trying to act like adolescents because we're not given the opportunity to become men in circles of power because it's all well and good you being a rapper at a certain point, but at a certain point, well, shouldn't you be an exec by now? Shouldn't you be a label owner by now? Shouldn't you be doing marketing by now because you've got the connection to it? But because these are the roles that we are deprived of, it keeps us as perpetual teenagers and then therefore keeps our fixation on teenage shit. And it affects us across the board whereby kids like toys and dressing up and pretending to be adults. So then you become an adult and you're still wearing big old chains that you don't need to wear and still focused on clothes. And because,
for that,
do you know what I mean?
Nah, I have to clap for that,
at this point, and you get to this point where it's like, I can afford to have this many bottles at a table, so I'm rich. No, people with money own fucking vineyards. That's the difference. Blood, you see the size of the TV in my yard? No, because people with money are fucking Sotheby's doing auctions for pictures that don't fucking move.
Nah,
and that's the difference. This it cost me $3 for this thing. Van Gogh's fucking sketches cost 40 million. So what the fuck difference does this make? So we have this obsession with toys and sweets and dress up. And it just goes around in a circle. And then we start becoming, and then because we're all teenagers, we start becoming jealous of the other younger years that's coming up as well, even though it's like, we should have long left by now and moved on. And because we are still acting like teenagers, it's very hard for the upcoming generations to respect us.
And to flex, to grow. Because the thing is as well, there's two problems in that, One, those teenagers coming up into a space that we are not moving out of, and I say we, metaphorically, not me personally, but it creates a space where those teenagers are coming into a space where they're now almost challenging those above them. You get what I'm showing you? As opposed to coming into a space where it's like, welcome, let me pull you up. This is the ropes. This is what we've done so far. Now look after the space. I'm off. I'm going to do the next batch of work that I've got to do. You get what I'm showing you? That we've got to do.
Not only that, you've also created a foundation and a cushion. And a foundation means that there is like a basis or you can have a basic understanding of stuff. But the important part also is the cushion because now you have the space to fail. And when you do fail, we can still get the lessons from the L. And I can give you those lessons because I've been there when I've had the L. And here's how you move forward from that. And we don't have that.
But then this goes on to something that is very prevalent or the saying that's very... And you know what? I'm going to say this. I'm going to preface what I'm going to say with this. It is changing. I've seen an improvement in our community in that young black males in particular are starting to work together, and it brings joy to me to see when I see them doing things from a corporate point of view or from a business point of view, and they're pulling their resources together and making things happen. But there are, as you refer to, a kind of legacy of teenagers that are occupying one-man band businesses, or because they don't want to have less than the next man, or
they don't know how to, and in their heads they see themselves the same as these kids. Even though it's like, you're not a kid no more.
But no, hear what I'm saying to you though. The example that they're setting is we don't work together.
Yeah.
You get me? As grown men now, man are 40 plus, yeah,
Yep.
and they're not able to work together because it's still like, my man can't have more than me, or this is my thing, or
Yeah.
this is, when really, in any endeavor that you're undergoing, there are so many roles and responsibilities to undertake. It needs many hands make light work.
Yeah.
You get what I'm showing you? You need as many hands as you can to get into anything. You get what I'm showing you? If you're gonna make it, make big things, you get me? And I feel like that is one of the things that we've perpetuated as far as the older generation are concerned, so that when the teenagers do come up, they're not coming into a space that's fostering brotherhood.
Yep.
You get what I'm showing you? And
Brotherhood's a great way of putting it, because that's the difference between ourselves and people outside of our culture, because they have brotherhood or they have fraternities.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I don't like you, or you're a Mason and I'm a Mason. So being a part of the society means we work towards achieving our goals together.
And I feel like that's what Islam has been able to do quite well.
Yeah.
It's no surprise that a lot of black converts, or I don't know what they call them, but people that converted from Christianity or any other religion to Islam have done that in jails. Because you're in a space in which you're failing, you've got a degree of ambition to you, and maybe you just don't want to get battered, but by the time you have been in, say, for want of a better word, I wouldn't even say indoctrinated, but you've been impressed upon, the religion of Islam has been impressed upon you, and to the point where not only are you now being given security, safety, financial promise, you know what I mean, a brotherhood, as we just said. You know, you leave jail, you've got all these things as almost like a guarantee. You get what I'm showing you?
It's community, and it's, you know, being a Muslim is a way of life, and there's a lot of those benefits, particularly to working class Caribbean men in the UK, working class African American men. Like, it helped with sobriety.
Right.
So when we talk about the problem of getting gal and going out and getting drinks and all the rest of it, well, Islam offers sobriety as an alternative to that, and being able to be focused. You know, Hajj, being on pilgrimage, being a part of a collective where everyone's ego has to go, because we are all equal under God. So, you know, and these kind of beliefs and zakat and stuff like that, and financial responsibility and helping those less fortunate as a part of your religious doctrine, where you're seeing it go towards benefiting certain people, these make you feel like you're part of something positive. And
that's that's the thing. And I think, but I feel like that is almost like pulled some of our most productive black brothers away from the black community and more towards the Islamic agenda. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is there are brothers within our community that need that brotherhood. And because you're not Muslim, you're not being afforded that. You get what I mean? And, you know, I've heard a few Muslim brothers say things like, why does it always have to be black or white? Or why do you say black and this and that, and it's this community and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is, it's okay when, and it never comes out of the mouth of anyone that is facing hardship. It's always, like, there's a couple of rappers I know that are Muslim that are doing quite well. And these are the people that say to me, right, like, it's not even a black thing, man. It's just an everyman thing. And it's like, but that's the doctrine you will get from an Islam point of view. But if you're not a Muslim and you're a black normal guy, whether you're Afro Caribbean or just directly from Africa, there's things or factors affecting you that you cannot circumvent in the same way that you can if you're part of the Islamic Brotherhood. You get what I'm showing you? And I think that's discounted. So when somebody then takes away their resources and skills and goes to another community, which for the most part, like when it comes to the Arabs and the Arab and black Muslims, there's a massive racism problem in that anyway. You get what I'm showing you? So for me, it's like, I'm just gonna say it, like, I don't feel comfortable with that happening. I don't feel comfortable with black brothers turning to Islam. That's not the thing that I have a problem with. You can be any religion you want. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the moment in which you do turn, you become a Muslim, you then start to segregate from
well, it's assimilation again, because
Yeah.
It's the idea that the problems that plague your community, your association with this institution makes you not have to connect with that in the same way.
Mm,
And to be quite honest, that sounds nice, but unfortunately, it's not the reality.
And it's you know what the thing about it is, I believe, right, and probably people are gonna feel away about this, but I believe even in the space of being a Muslim and a black Muslim, there you still face issues of racism, and
I definitely do, and I've heard
in
that
that,
directly from the
yeah,
mouths of black Muslims, and there's a whole talk about like a lot of the time like it gets kind of fobbed off because they'll be like, yeah, but brother, Bilal was black, and
yeah, yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
going to act as if I'm even aware of the Tawheed, and
Mm,
I'm not up on my understanding of Quran at all, yeah. But I do know like that is an issue that a lot of black Muslims, not necessarily converts,
mm,
but obviously a lot of men, particularly from North Africa, Northwest Africa, and stuff as well, would
mm,
have been raised as Muslims. They're aware of that, and maybe it might, and again it might be just down to the fact that because they've moved from the continent
yeah,
to the West,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
where racial hierarchy is a lot more explicit.
Mm,
They experience it a lot more than they would if they were dealing with their Arab and Asian Muslim brothers
mm,
outside of the West.
yeah.
But we're here, it's where we are, and
Well, I
yeah,
mean, to be fair,
sometimes they can do
you
that.
say that, and I don't necessarily agree, because when a lot of Arab nations still hold black people as, and I want to, yeah, as
Servants,
slaves.
yeah, slaves and
You
servants,
get what
yeah,
I'm showing you?
as
Like there's
serfs, yeah,
and especially in places like, Saudi
yep,
and certain parts of the UAE and stuff like
yeah,
that. You get what I'm showing you? And these people will move from Africa. They are Muslims.
mm-hmm,
They'll go to a Saudi and they'll start serving a family and get their passports taken away, get beaten. There's so many viral videos of this happening
yeah.
across the internet. You get what I'm showing you? It disgusts me, bro. This is the reason
But
why
let's look at what's happening in
all
Sudan.
these
In Sudan,
it pisses me off, yeah, when all these black people then start to go and spend all their money in Dubai
mm,
and want to go and live lavish life and whatever. But Dubai is one of the nations that's heavily pillaging Africa for gold. You
mm,
get what I mean? And enriching themselves off our resources. But
mm-hmm,
then we then go, whatever little coppers we do have, we go in our droves and say, let's go and live in Dubai, where we can build our own Dubai in Africa.
mm-hmm.
It pisses me off, bro.
I hear
Like,
it. No,
you get
listen,
me?
I hear it completely, and I think there's a lot to be said for how people deal with their trauma. And I think, for example,
Mm.
coming from a marginalized and downtrodden community, people try to reclaim some level of power by being able to go to Dubai, and I think,
And live it up.
and not
Yeah,
feel like they are a second class citizen, and
yeah,
not feel like they
yeah,
are a part
yeah.
of a inferior or downtrodden culture. And
Mm,
they do that well enough whereby they can be like, well, I can see these man that's on these buildings in 38-degree heat with a tunic on and a hard hat, but he don't look like me, so I guess I don't have to worry as much. But I think, and I've said it before, it's like you feel like you're free, or you feel like you're balling, but do the people on the billboards look like you?
mm. You know what? I want to take it back to something that you said earlier, but and this is kind of way back. But before we move on to the next subject, you mentioned Tim Westwood. You asked me a question about Tim Westwood,
Mm.
and the answer to that is I don't believe he was responsible for successfully A&R in any UK acts.
I know.
Yeah, like, I'm
Exactly.
that is said from a position.
Thank you.
But then I'm gonna say this, and there's two questions. No, there's a question and a statement. Question: how does Tim Westwood, in your opinion, differ from David Rodigan?
Myself personally, I don't think there is a massive difference between them.
Okay.
I don't think there's a difference
Yeah.
between them. I think maybe there is, because of the allegations surrounding Tim Westwood,
Mm,
people have a lot more animosity towards him.
mm.
I don't dislike David Rodigan as a person. I've not had anything to the contrary where my perception of him would change.
Mm,
But I'll be honest with you, I see them both as gatekeepers. I see
mm,
them both as representatives of an institution that reluctantly awards us our presence in these spaces that should
mm,
be afforded to us anyway by the merit of us creating this art.
mm,
But they are put in a position whereby they are given fiefdoms where they almost get to dictate the direction of our music and our culture.
mm,
And I see this precipitate in instances whereby there was a time where dancehall artists like Elephant Man and maybe like, I think it was like Buju and stuff like that, they couldn't come to the UK and the Mobos because everyone said that they were homophobes.
mm,
But then people like Finley Quay and Ed Sheeran and a lot can get awards for dancehall and representative of it, but it's like this country that's always talking about freedom of speech is depriving the people that are influenced. These British artists, and they can't even travel to the UK.
I mean, you're talking to someone who is not really, you know what I mean, as a lifestyle, I'm not really down for the whole homosexual side of things. But I say that to say this.
I'm saying, but I'm talking about freedom of speech.
But even in the context of freedom of speech, one thing I'm not down for, and I've learned to get into this space again. A lot of people who know me will probably think, right, surprised that this is the stance I'm taking, but there is a difference when you're inciting violence, and a lot of these artists are inciting violence. So freedom of speech crosses the line because it doesn't mean you cannot like anything. You get what I'm showing you. And one thing that we have to be careful of is that when we are having our spaces of freedom of speech or speaking freely, and we want to use anything to speak freely, and people are inciting violence against other communities, if we are allowing that, we are also allowing people to do the same thing to us.
Yes,
you get what I'm
which is that's a very valid point. But that is the point, that it's like, I'm not saying that I agree with that, because obviously I don't.
Yeah.
But it's fine when we are talking about killing ourselves.
Yeah.
But everyone seems to step in when it's like other marginalized communities.
It's all good for people to make money off it, and that's the bigger point. You get what I'm showing you.
But I say that the difference between them, I don't see a very big difference. I don't see the difference between them and Charlie Sloth. And I say this because everyone's able to glorify and big up the music, but when we are dealing with the brunt of the marginalization and the deprivation of opportunities and the deprivation of the opportunity to travel, or we are stigmatized and the lyrics then become used against us in court, or they become the justification for our character profiling and racial profiling.
But no DJ's ever pulled up in court for implicating anyone in any kind of wrong.
I'm saying for Tim Westwood, you've made millions off of this thing, where this same thing gets us put in jail, or gets us hemmed up by the feds, or we get stopped and searched as children. You're nowhere there. You've made millions driving around in Cadillac Escalades in the UK, but then the same people that are around your house doing freestyles, they don't have no youth clubs. And some of them are facing life in prison. And I don't see your face giving them as a character witness or giving them references to keep these young children out of prison. So you get to enjoy all the bread, but none of the crust. And for me, that's just
very, very powerful point.
Just fucking stop. No more, and we've seen somewhat of a change in the landscape, but I don't want to see none more of these gatekeepers.
You know what? I would say this, and this is coming onto my statement, but before that statement, the main statement is this, right? I feel like when it comes to Charlie Sloth, I was able to see his and you would have seen it as well.
Yeah, he was a rapper first.
He was a rapper first, you get me? And he worked very hard. Yeah, I'm showing you. Now, I can't say that I'm particularly, because the way I look at Charlie Sloth is that I see a lot of, I see when on his come up, even though a lot of black people in particular seemed to be resistant to him when he was coming up, and funny enough, not as resistant to him as, where they were more resistant to him than they were Professor Green, but that's a whole different subject. My point is, there seemed to be some resistance towards Charlie Sloth, even as a rapper when he was coming up, right? And in that space, he worked fucking hard to get through the cracks and do what he's doing, and to a point where he even stopped being a rapper and kind of diversified and got into DJing, and you know what I mean? And you've seen the transition when he was doing that, I can't remember the actual name of it. Was like almost like a acting thing that he was doing as a part of rapping, with the rapping in it. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make is this: to a point, I can see where he deserved the success. What I don't particularly like is that when he first got in, especially when he became a DJ and well known for what he was doing in terms of like the firing in the booths and all that kind of thing, all the people around him were black. Today, you go on his Instagram, and a man can do what he wants, you know. I'm saying that, to me, it just seems like, yes, okay, now I'm set. I don't see no one really directly feeding off.
That's all I'm saying. That's what I'm saying to you.
You get me?
I'm not saying I don't deny he works hard, but I know that there's 20 Charlie Sloths that are black brothers in the hood. That have there's been guys somewhere like Birmingham, for example, where there's always been as healthy a rap scene, if not superior rap scene, that's been consistent compared to London.
Yeah.
You know, there's plenty of men that have done the equivalent of A&Rs and try to bring man through that,
So yeah,
or not have the same ears. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying to you that like there's for every one Jessie J, there's 10 black women that can sing that well.
Yeah.
That will never get in front of people because of what the gatekeepers. Labyrinth, for example, all of Labyrinth's family have got musical talent. A bag of them.
Oh, and you know what? The problem with people like Labyrinth, and I'm just gonna like quickly gloss on this one. The problem with Labyrinth is not to say that he's not experienced any success. We can clearly see that he has, but to the degree that he probably should have, no. The reasons I believe that wrong A&R in, he was signed to the wrong label, and they didn't know what to do with him, and they just, he's almost like a curse on him onto himself. For want of a better word, I don't really like using the word curse, but
talent. It's just talent.
He's so talented that he just wanted to do so much, and this is the opinion I get. I've only met him a couple of times, but from what the musical direction and the sporadic way in which the music was being released, it suggested to me that it was like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, but this is what creative geniuses do.
Yeah.
And as an A&R, it's your job to say, no, this is not the trajectory. This is not going to bring. Maybe it was. Maybe this is what he wanted to do. Whatever. But I don't think this is what he would have preferred to have at the time. But anyway, going back to the original point, what I was saying is, said what I've got to say about Charlie Sloth. Worked hard. I think he deserves I think he deserves his success.
Yeah,
I just don't feel comfortable in a way in which like it doesn't feel like anyone from the community is now involved.
But see, that's what I'm saying, because he's in his mid-40s now. He's graduated from the adolescent part of his journey. And as you begin to be in the adult part, where not only I'm not a DJ, so to speak, I produce a show. I produce a format, and then I become a leading voice whereby I can create other formats, and then I can get consulted for a label, and then I can parlay my expertise into different, diversify my portfolio, and have my alcohol. What I'm saying by that is, when you start moving into these spaces and these higher echelons of industries that are connected to the culture, but I understand exactly the culture. You start seeing less and less of us,
and that's
the problem.
That's where I have a problem. That's what I'm saying. So, but then, speaking of David Rodigan, for me, in my opinion, what I respect about David Rodigan is that he doesn't appear to me to try to get himself over the culture that he's.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? And that's the credit I can give him. You get what I'm showing you? Like, I respect him, and I like David Rodigan I've been listening to David Rodigan from since I was a youth. So I have a lot of respect for David Rodigan and what he's done for the culture and whatever. What I would say about the both of them combined is that I don't think it's positions that they've particularly worked any harder than any of their black counterparts. What I would say is that they've been afforded those positions because of institutional racism. You get what I'm showing you? This goes on to my statement now. We, as black people within the UK, have what it takes to make changes.
Yeah.
But whenever we get into these positions to make changes as music industry execs or people within positions of power within, whether it be BBC or any of the broadcasters or whatever, we always for the most part, find ways to fuck it up. Yeah. And I'm going to talk specifically about music because I'm in that space, where music execs will be given a budget, right? And they'll just fuck it up. They'll do, and big budgets as well. Instead of doing things that are actually about releasing the music, you'll be doing everything else. You get what I'm showing you? Certain spaces that are not being facilitated properly enough to actually showcase that our execs can do the job. But here's the kicker. These people are being afforded the same positions as if it was a Charlie Sloth or a David Rodigan. Almost as though you're not going to give back to the community. So what you're doing is you're fucking up the opportunity that the community gets. Yeah. Being a gatekeeper, and then that white exec above them has reason now to say, well, we tried that.
Yeah. They didn't know what it was doing.
You get what I'm showing you? So we're not going to do that again. And it will take 5-7 years for another opportunity like that to come along.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest disappointment. Now, there's two things. Maybe these white execs just don't know what they're doing and they just go in shiny spoon syndrome in it. They see someone have a moment and they run over and say, exec, here you are, take this money, go and then they go and sign brilliant artists in some cases, brilliant artists, but don't A&R them right, or don't, like, there's things that are happening that just don't really work for the artists.
Yeah,
And
because
don't
people,
bring about
like I said,
success.
because people are like teenagers and
Yes, yeah,
get
yeah,
gassed
again.
about the position. It's a position that they want to lord over their other peers that look like them as well, rather than saying, I know you're over there, you're doing your thing over there, but this is overall where we can create a space and, you know, we will form a nebulous where in that orbit, all of us are going to eat in one way or another long term.
But that's not the and that's the thing. So
That's the problem.
that's another thing. That's the second thing. So the first thing for me is like, I feel like these executives, the white executives, don't know or don't care, and they just give the money, and it's just like it fails, and it's like, okay, cool, we're not going to give you that opportunity again. But then, secondly, these black executives don't really care about the longevity and instead of getting the right people in positions and creating solid business structures, they're more concerned about the aesthetics and being in that adolescence phase of their life, you know what I mean, rather than thinking, hold on, how can we set up for long-term sustenance and success?
Yeah.
You get me? Now, here's the thing. Like I said to you, I've just used the words of being afforded these opportunities. Now we need to stop being afforded and go and fucking do it ourselves because we can. You get what I'm showing you? And that is the next thing. And it takes us now to come together as a community to actually start this thing and look at ways. And I'm not just talking about music. I'm not just talking about media. These are the spaces that I'm in. I'm talking everything. And we are the primary cultivators of our industries, but we are not the primary beneficiaries. Now we need to find ways in which we can be the primary beneficiaries of what we cultivate. You get what I'm showing you? Like that's
period, point blank.
That's what it is for me.
That's it.
And we can do it because there's opportunities not being afforded, but opportunities for us to take it. It's all about market share and the way that we cleverly put together business structures to be in the space where markets buy directly from us. There's so many ways in which we can do it. I say all that to say this. In my opinion, it starts with family. You know what I mean?